just gonna give it a few more minutes, but I always try to make sure that we start before 8 o'clock, or 8 o'clock on the dot, just to ensure that we can cover the material that I want to discuss in this particular class, and then there's enough time to answer questions. If you are currently watching and you are tuned in, please can you comment so that I can just see you and I can know that you were there. Um, just say hi or your name or whatever, and then of course I can recognize you, and then we can we can we can chat. But feel free, please, if you have questions at any point, to ask your questions. Isn't like one of those presentations that I will start with the presentation. Praise, I can see you. Praise Fakorede. Hi there. How's it going? Thanks for joining. I can see a few more people are online as well. Please, let's also indicate if you are in the class. Let's say hi so that we can just exchange greetings. Okay, so again, just to give a bit of background to what we're doing and why it's necessary. The thing is, looking back over my awesome, it's going good. I can see that. Praise. Over my career and over my life, I think this set of videos started from me trying to advise my younger self or someone who is a lot younger than me, starting their career in the banking industry, in the finance industry, or just generally working in Nigeria as a young professional, trying to create a solid financial future for yourself. What are some of the things that I wish I knew back then that I feel would have probably accelerated my progress, or make things a lot better as a young professional? That's one part of it. The second part is the fact that I think it's living in Nigeria. One of the issues that you face constantly is the reminder that there isn't a lot of opportunity for you to actually be financially secure, and the media constantly reinforces the notion of a quicker way to wealth through government, or through scams, or through other short-term, means, which is not necessarily which is not the right picture that I feel a lot of young people should have. You can create wealth for yourself. You can create a solid financial future for yourself, where you will be, happy, financially independent, and successful in your career. And that is the driving force for a lot of this. So that we put all that information out there. I feel the younger generation should always be better than the generation before them. And that's why, myself and so many other young people, so many other, maybe more senior professionals are constantly trying to put out these ideas of what you can do different that can make you a lot better in your career, and also establish you well as a professional in your chosen field. Okay, so I started this particular series on wealth because I believe it's very important for young professionals to have multiple sources of income. And it is a combination of both your job, and your side businesses, your businesses and side hustles and investments. It's not just one stream of income, and neither is better than the other. We're not here to say, oh, it's better you focus on getting a business and forget about a job. No, both of them are equally important. You need to have a job, you need to have a business, you need to have investments. Okay, you need to have passions, hobbies. You need to have a balanced life. And I think, later on, one of the topics we will talk about is this balance, because it's important that you have balance. Balance is, there's more to your life than just one aspect. You're not just all about your job, or you're not just all about your investments, you're not just all about your family. There's more to you, and all these are important aspects of your life, and it's important you pay attention to all of them. That is very key. Okay, so this series of wealth is really about understanding how to go about creating multiple sources of income for yourself, so that then you can actually start to build, your investments, and then you can, of course, start to build real wealth for yourself and also a strong financial future for yourself. Now, and of course, the earlier you build your wealth, the better it is for you, because then you're actually able to send your kids to a good school. And if your dream is just to travel the world, you have enough resources to travel to whichever country you want to travel to around the world, learn about different cultures. You have the opportunity to make the kind of investments you want to make, do the kind of charities you want to do, and so on. And I think this is very key. Now, most of the experience I will be sharing in today's class. Today we'll be talking about how to think about business ideas. Most of this experience will be coming from two things. Number one is the fact that in my career, I've had opportunity of speaking to several entrepreneurs. I used to work as a writer on a magazine way back in 2004. I used to work as a writer on a magazine called Network Magazine. And Network Magazine used to be about business, personal finance, and so on. So we used to talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, because we would interview one entrepreneur every week, every month, and they would tell us how they started their business. And the first entrepreneur I ever spoke to was the founder of Soulmate Hair Cream. And if you've been in Nigeria for a long time, especially as a woman, you would know that Soulmate Hair Cream was one of the most reliable hair products way back in Nigeria. Then I think the hype is a little bit lower now, but way back it used to be one of the strongest brands in hair cream in the hair care industry in Nigeria. And sitting with him for a couple of hours and listening to him talk about how he started, from mixing the chemicals in his frying pan in his house, in his, one bedroom apartment, more like self-contained apartment, to the day we were talking to him where we were actually sitting in his factory, very large complex, several buildings. There were trailers loading product, going back and forth and so on. And I was talking to this man and he was telling me his story. I started to understand a lot of things about businesses. And then over time, I've spoken to several other entrepreneurs for the magazine. And then as a banker as well, too, especially in the oil and gas space, I've seen companies that started with just a business plan, and they are mega oil and gas, oil and gas companies today. And then also the second part of the experience I'll be sharing today is also because I have provided business plans for a lot of entrepreneurs as well, too, on the side as well, while I was a banker. And I did business plans, feasibility studies for several types of businesses. One of the first set of businesses I did a feasibility study plan for was a tomato paste factory in the northern part of the country. I don't want to be specific. And we did extensive work trying to understand the market for tomato paste in Nigeria. And that's where I started to dig a bit into research to understand that Nigeria is actually one of the largest producers of tomatoes in the world in terms of per ton. The quantity of tomatoes we produce. But guess what? We are also one of the largest importers of tomato paste in the world as well, too. So again, that's all that. I mean, we did all sorts of business plans for tomato paste factory, set up a gas LPG plant for someone in Ibadan, set up a quality, safety, health, and environment business for a guy who just left oil and gas jobs, all sorts of businesses. And then in the line of helping my friends as well to set up their own businesses in training, in modeling, all sorts of businesses, and so all these ideas, all these businesses have helped me to understand a couple of things about how to go about selecting the right business for yourself, and also how you should actually think about business ideas for yourself. I think one of the businesses that really excites me when I think about the fact that this is a truly Nigerian business is Paga. And I know Tayo is very available on Twitter, so you can always talk to him as well too. That's the founder of Tayo Oviosu, founder of Paga. But it really excites me when I see Nigerian businesses like that start from scratch, and you can see them grow into becoming, really successful, big time businesses. You have Iroko TV, you have several more. And what is to stop you watching me as well from becoming the next person who actually sets up a solid business like this ones that I have mentioned as well too? There's nothing stopping you as well. So it's just a case of ensuring that first of all you select the right idea for yourself, and then the second part is you then analyze that idea very well so that you actually set it up properly. So we're going to start from the first part, and I apologize because there is no presentation. There is no slide. There are no slides for this particular class. What I just want to do is provide you, first of all, with 4 steps. J Lo, I can see you. Awesome. You are welcome. Please, if you're on the class, please indicate in the comment section, just say hi or something, and then I can salute you, and then we can go on with the class. Okay. I see JLo, I see Praise, Fakorede as well. Okay. so today I want to start with 4 steps that you should take when you're trying to select the right business idea for yourself. Okay, Olu Ebube Nwosu. Ebube, hi as well. It's good to see you. Yinka, awesome. You're welcome as well. It's good to see you all. So how do you go about selecting the right idea for yourself? Now, it starts this way. There are tons of business ideas out there. Tons and tons. In fact, thousands of business ideas that you could possibly be running. That's why when I tweeted during the week, I said, look, that literally anything that somebody wants or needs could be a business opportunity. It might not be the right business for you, but it is actually a business idea. As long as it's an opportunity, it's something people want or people need and so on, it's an idea. So it becomes a business opportunity. Now, but the question is, for you, what exactly is the right business idea? Now, that is why the first step, and pretty much the most important step, is you need to first of all have, like a business journal, like an idea book where you need to write down every idea that comes to you, every idea that you come across. You need to have someone you write it down. You see, there's something about writing down things that helps you to know exactly what you're doing. Look, anybody can say, oh, I have this idea, or I have that idea, but show me where you have written down that idea and how that idea works. Then I know that you actually have an idea. A lot of people say, oh, so I'm thinking about this idea where we'll just have some people that just invest in in land, and then we'll sell the land at a higher price and we'll make money. Where is the land? What sort of land is it? Who are you trying to sell the land to? How do you plan to get all the documents and titles for that land? So many things that you need to think about when you say you have an idea. Writing them down helps you to clarify them, because oftentimes you think you understand something. You think you do actually. You think you understand it. But when you start writing it down, you suddenly realize that, I haven't actually thought about this thing. So the first discipline, oftentimes, when it comes to picking the right idea, is writing the idea down. That, okay, this idea is to set up a farm for an agricultural farm where I will grow different kinds of animals, maybe pigs or rabbits or grass cutters or so on, whatever it is. And this is how this idea will work. So first step is you need to write it down. Okay, write down the idea. Very key. Write it out in its entirety. Spell it out in everything you can think about that idea. And that's why, look, I wish I could show you, but I have all those in my basement. Diaries upon diaries upon diaries that I've kept for several years, jotted full with all sorts of ideas that I have had or that I have had to work on with people. It's important. Charles Duro Sao, how you doing, Charles? Good to see you. You're welcome. So that is the first discipline. that you need to first of all get into. The first step to selecting the right idea for yourself, write it down. Number two step is you then need to screen the ideas. You need to filter the ideas. Now, the parameter by which you will filter the idea, I'll give you a couple of parameters. Number one parameter by which you will filter out the right idea is, first and foremost, your personality. So while all sorts of ideas are, possible and profitable, and doable, not every idea is actually suited to you. Some ideas are best suited to someone maybe with a different kind of attitude. I often tell people that about myself that, for instance, one thing I know so well is that anything that has to do with learning with my hands, doing it with my hands, making stuff with my hands, I'm pretty good at those kind of things. I can learn them very fast. Anything that has to do with big vision, big picture thinking, analytical thinking, I'm very good at it. Okay. There are other things that I'm not very good at, and so I would typically not go towards ideas that require me to be maybe, like, for instance, I probably could never be in audits. I'm not that much of a person that would pay all the attention to all the finer details, but another person would be. And so, for instance, I don't talk about my wife a lot, but that is something she excels at significantly, and I mean, in this class, I can freely say that when we were moving to Canada, pretty much all the documentations, all the forms, all the I's that had to be dotted and the T's that had to be crossed, she was the one that took care of it, because she has worked in accounting pretty much all her life, and she knows if 0.01 kobo is missing somewhere, So understand your personality and what works for you. And when I say understand your personality, it's in regard to a couple of things. It's in regard to things like, what area of what skills do you have? What passions do you have? What type of mindset or thinking do you have? Your personality, is it outgoing? Is it an extroverted or introverted personality? Do you pay attention to details? Are you a big picture thinker? Are you someone that works best in a team? Are you someone that works best alone? Understand your personality, because that's the first screen by which you will filter out ideas that wouldn't work for you. The second thing also too would be in terms of capital. It would be in terms of capital as well too. There are some business ideas that you want to start, or that may be among your journaled ideas, that you may not be able to immediately start because you don't have the capital to start. Now, that may not be necessarily the only reason to screen them out, because oftentimes every idea, no matter how big it is, there's always a way to start it on a pilot level. There's always a way to start it on a smaller basis, no matter the idea. Look, I was in a class once, and we were talking. I said this, and someone was like, okay, so what if I want to own a vessel? What if my idea is to own a vessel? So what is a small way to start by owning a vessel? And I said, look, you don't have to own the vessel right away. You don't have to have the capital to own a vessel. It could start with something as simple as you connecting someone who needs a vessel with someone who has a vessel, and you take a commission as the middleman, and that is how you start that business. Just last week, we interviewed, in our last video, if you go to the YouTube page, we interviewed Ubon King. Ubon King is the chairman of Protection Plus, Security Limited, and he owns like 6 vessels right now. I remember when he was starting the business, he did say so in the interview as well too, that look, he started his business in security purely by joining a network on LinkedIn of people who were talking about security, and he was always contributing. And that was where someone approached him and said, "Hey, you're always talking about this thing. Can you provide security for a dignitary in, Kenya and Ethiopia and so on?" And he looked for somebody in Kenya who could provide it, and he connected the two of them, and he collected his share of the commission. So there is literally no idea that you want to start that you can start on a seed level or on a pilot level. Okay. But what I'm saying now, when I say screen and behave with capital, is the fact that you need to then identify, can you actually start this level in this business idea immediately on a pilot level, or it's just something that you, even on a pilot level, you can't do at the moment. Okay, that's one reason to also screen an idea out. Another thing you can also use is also in terms of the type of the idea itself. Okay, um, you want to pick something that is more in line with your experience, and more in line with your that you know a little bit more about. Don't pick something that you don't know anything about. Pick an idea that you already have to some extent some idea in. We say it this way when we say that what you're looking for in Sokoto is in your Shokoto. What we simply mean is that in growing up in your career, in your life, there's been all sorts of experiences you've had with things that people need, people want, that at times you have even provided for free without knowing. If you think back over your life, there are all those things that you can eventually, in some way, turn into an idea. So if you have a long list of ideas, you want to start with, first of all, the ones that to some extent you have seen someone provide, or you have been involved in providing before, or you know about how people go about providing that idea. Those would be the ones that would even make it past your first or second step of screening an idea. So, for instance, let me give you an idea. There was a time chandling was actually a big deal, and I was just growing up then. I was just joining the bank, and a couple of friends would always come and meet me and say, "Guy, do you know about chandling?" And what is chandling? Chandling is provision of groceries, supplies to vessels offshore. you know we call it chandling. It's really that the idea simply is that as long as crew and staff are on a vessel and they are packed offshore, they still need to eat, they still need to wear clothes, they still need to use soap and all those kind of things. And chandlers are people who then take smaller vessels, buy those things in bulk, and go and supply it to those vessels. And those vessels will typically pay a bit of a premium on it because they are not on land. So rigs, vessels, they all need, chandlers. And it's a big deal in the Niger Delta. There are people who provide that business regularly, make a lot of money from it, chandling, bunker fuels. That's fuels that are used by vessels. Now, at the time when someone was telling me about this, I was just starting out my career in oil and gas. And I was like, as much as I know about oil and gas, this is not necessarily the business for me because I don't know anything about this business. I don't have any experience of this business. I know it's done, but I've never seen anybody do it. I've never seen how it works. I don't know how they charge for it. I don't know how they price it. I've never engaged anybody to provide this service. So I don't know how it's done. But it's different from when someone approached me and said, "Oh, I need to conduct a survey and I need someone to help us conduct the survey. Can you do it for us? And how much will it cost?" I can give you that start immediately. Why? Because during my NYSC, I participated in many surveys. I, did many surveys for people during my time, doing a lot of PPP work for clients, doing feasibility studies. We did a lot of surveys. For instance, when I was setting up the tomato paste plant, I had a team of like 20 young people who went to different parts of Lagos, markets, households and all that, interviewed we did about 1,000 plus survey people, in that survey about their usage of tomato paste and so on, what tomato paste they use, which brands they know about, blah, blah, blah. We did all that. When I was setting up a gas plant for someone in Ibadan as well too, we did surveys as well too. Who are the users of LPG? How do they pay for it? How does it get supplied to them? Where do they buy it from? What kind of LPG do they use? All sorts. What kind of container do they use? What kind of stove do they use for cooking with the LPG gas? All sorts. So with that, I mean, I had some experience in that. If someone met me today and say, "Oh, we need to design a survey for this or for that," ready to go. I'm ready to go. So that is how you start to screen ideas. Find something that you actually have some experience in, something that you actually, so that is a starting point, before you jump to something that you know nothing about. Okay. For instance, I see a lot of people. There was a time when dry cleaning was the craze in Nigeria. I don't know if some of you will remember. There was a time when dry cleaning was such a huge deal in Nigeria that everybody was setting up dry cleaning business. I know a friend then that went to America, bought all sorts of machines, brought them back, and set up a dry cleaning business, and was now then started looking for customers. Sorry, my laptop is disconnected. I need to connect it back. So I started looking for customers. And of course that was a bad idea because he had done all the capital investments before he actually even established his brand or sought for customers, and that business didn't do well. I think it's shut down now. So in terms of screening, I've given you three things. I've said number one is your personality. Number two, is have some sort of experience or pick ideas that you have some sort of experience in. I've also talked about capital as well too, in terms of what you can realistically start today as well too. But I've said capital has a bit of a disclaimer or a bit of a conditionality around it, in the sense that there are ideas that you can start in a smaller way compared to the bigger idea, and that might not be, so it might not necessarily be a reason to screen it out. But in terms of what you can start today and the amount of money that is required for you to start that business right away, you might be able to screen out some ideas, and they might not necessarily be bad ideas. You can just push them to something you can start on a later date, as well. So that is the second step, screening the ideas. Now, the third step is you then need to test the idea. You need to test the idea. Now, when I say test the idea, I'm not saying you should actually start producing the product and actually start running the idea. Hey, Laulu, good to see you as well too. Now, I'm not saying you should actually start running the idea. What I'm simply saying now is you can do two things. There are two ways you can test an idea. You can do a mock and you can do a pilot. Now, let's start with the mock test. It's just like when you write professional exams, you have your mock exam, and your mock exam is not the real exam, okay? But it gives you an idea of what the exam environment feels like. So, for instance, someone says, "Oh, I want to set up an LPG retailing business." In other words, I've identified that in this our estate, there are only two people that supply LPG, and cooking gas, and you have to drive to the guy's shop, and then you exchange your gas cylinder with the guy, and then the guy brings it to you. Now, if you want to set up an LPG retailing plant, a simple way to test that idea would be print out a flyer with your number and name of your business and say, people should call if they want LPG, and you have your price stated. And just from the calls you get, now the reason is you haven't made any investment yet apart from the flyer you printed, but people that you can get the gas from. Okay, so you can set a bit of a small margin, to quickly go and pick up the cylinder from the guys and deliver it to those people, or you have someone who actually has that responsibility to go and pick it up from them and deliver to the customer that's called, so that you are not necessarily the one doing it. Okay, that's one way to test out an idea, because just from then you can then sit back and watch and see how much demand there is for that idea, or how that idea would actually work. Another thing is you could actually just mock test the idea by actually looking to connect two people in that line of business, and say, okay, hi, someone tells you, oh, I actually need someone that can do a business plan for me. It's like, business plan. What do you want? What business are you trying to set up? I'm trying to set up this business. I need someone that can do a financial model and write out the business plan as well too, because I'm trying to get a loan from a development bank. Blah 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 blah. Okay, that's it. I actually have someone who can do it for you. Let me talk to him and then I'll get back to you. And then you go and look for somebody who can actually do it, and then you talk to that person. Okay, so how much do you charge for business plans? What do you do? And so on, because you want to get into that business, but you can mock test it by actually connecting to people who need that service, and then from the way they go about it, it gives you a clear insight into how to actually do it. So for instance, in writing business plans for people, I didn't actually start by just, I didn't know how do you meet customers for a business plan idea. It starts by you actually connecting people. So the funny thing is, you connecting people with people who need a service actually creates a bit of a reputation for yourself that you are someone who can provide solutions to. So while the people may not necessarily, some people may actually remember that, okay, this is the guy that wrote the business plan for me, and they will call him next time, especially if they're satisfied. But more importantly, they remember that, okay, it was this guy that introduced me to this guy, and you start to create a name for yourself in that regard as well too. So I started with connecting people as well too. And then I realized that, look, I could do this myself. And then I started saying, okay, you know what? I can actually write it for you as well. Let me write this one for you for a reduced price. And if you like it, let me know. And the person liked it, recommended me to the next person, and so on. And before I knew what's happening, I had to start turning down jobs because I was like, look, I'm loaded. Each business plan would probably take me somewhere in the region of about a month or two to write, because I have to do several trips, I have to do surveys, I have to do all sorts of, do a financial model and so on before we can finish it. So you need to, mock test the idea. Mock test could also mean that you look for someone who's already in the business and take some time to actually, volunteer with them to sort of get an understanding of how they do it, or tell them, especially as someone who's willing to share the knowledge. Oftentimes, I get the idea that we're in Nigeria and competition means people don't want to share their ideas. It's part of why, I like to be very open about stuff. I believe that I believe in what we call the blue ocean strategy, in the sense that the sky is big enough for every bird to fly. Look, if I tell you my idea and you steal it, you cannot perfect that idea as much as I have it in my mind, because I've taken the time to actually think about the idea in ways that I'm sure you have not. And so I think we can compete and we can do as much as we can, or as long as we're not deliberately going out to sabotage each other's ideas, I think there's room for everybody to fly. Okay, so testing the idea, there's a mock way of doing that. And then there's the pilot. Now the pilot actually involves some investment. The pilot is that you actually invest a little capital in the business to actually test out the idea if it works before you go in large scale, especially if it's an idea that you can actually scale up to a very large level. So for instance, you want to provide trainings or so on, you can start with one or two people and you get an experience that, okay, what are some of the feedback from the classes I've given? What are some of the feedback from my training session? How did people really react to it? Did people really like it? And so on. Did it really help anybody? Is anybody the better off because of it? And so on. So you can first of all do it on a pilot level. A pilot level test essentially means that is either you're investing a little capital or you're starting the business at a very small scale. Okay, so for instance, you want to print t-shirts for sale on Jumia, or you want to make clothes for sale on Jumia, and so on. So you take a few samples, or you take just one product and you push that product into the market and you see how that product performs. And then from the performance of that product, you can establish a couple of things about that idea, if the idea will work or not. Now, when we come to the idea analysis section, I'll talk about that a bit, because what I want to say here is that one of the things that a pilot helps you to quickly identify is who is your market. So for instance, when I started the sportswear business, my initial thought was that, and my initial strategy was that, okay, I want to sell sports wares to Nigerians, okay, and all my sport wares will be like between 500 naira to 1,000 naira, no matter what I'm selling. Now, the idea was simply that I think I can find 1 million Nigerians, 1 million Nigerians who are willing to buy a sportswear for that price range. Why? Because there are extensive studies that show that there are um, there are only about between 1 million to 1.5 million Nigerians that earn above 300,000 naira. I've seen two different reports that say that. So the market for retail in Nigeria is quite small. So I was limiting myself to that 1 million people that look, if I can find 1 million people who are willing to buy a new sportwear, either tights or shorts or a top, a workout top like this one, or just earplugs for for listening to music while they work out, or gloves for riding their bikes and so on, that I'm certain that I can find 1 million Nigerians that are willing to pay between this price range for sportwear. Because if I can find 1 million Nigerians who are willing to pay me 500, that's 500 million naira. If I can find 1 million Nigerians who are willing to pay me 1,000 naira for his new sportwear, that's 1 billion naira. Okay. So for me, it was more about volumes. And so when I pushed out the first product, which was a pair of leggings, I immediately saw the flaw in my thinking. And what was the mistake? The mistake is that clearly, of course, people who are willing to pay 1,000 for a new pair of leggings would actually prefer to buy a higher quality one, which would be a higher waist, what they call a high waist leggings, because Nigerian ladies are pretty much endowed on the lower parts of the body, and they wouldn't want to wear leggings that when they are working out keep slipping down and so on. So they want a high waist leggings. And if you're going to get a high waist leggings, which is good quality, which will be pretty firm around the waist area or the abdomen area, then you would actually have to pay above 1,000 for it. And of course, that then limits the market a little bit more, because the moment the price range shifts above 1,000, then it's out of the range of people. And then at the same time also too, I found that the people that I was trying to sell to as well too, a lot of people also want something cheaper than 500, but still want the quality of something that is above 1,000. So again, those issues in the market clearly identified to me that I had to make a choice between selling to those people who want below 500 or selling to those people who wanted above 1,000. And I chose to go with the people above 1,000. And it was the best decision I could have made, because I started getting customers from Kaduna, from Abuja. I mean, one lady would just order and send for like 15 leggings because she would buy for all her friends, and so on. And it was a good idea, and eventually went on. But that testing, that pilot helped me to understand that. And by the time I was leaving, before I left Nigeria, I had actually just ordered a new shipment of all different shapes and sizes of leggings and so on, which I only started selling through some stores recently, in Lagos. So what am I saying? Pilots are good. Pilots help you to test out an idea and help you to get feedback, by which you can then use to actually narrow and develop the business a lot better. So now the question is, to some extent, you can test a pilot, to a limited level, because how many ideas do you want to run pilots for? And that's why your screening has to be very good, because at the end of your screening, essentially, you want to narrow your ideas down to 3 or 4, at the very least, maybe 5 to 7 ideas that you can test either on a mock level or on a pilot level. Okay. Now, that is the third step. So 3 steps that we've talked about so far: write down the idea in all its entirety. Everything you think about the idea, just write it down under the idea. And then number 2 is you need to screen the idea using your personality, the type of idea itself, your experience in the idea, and the amount of capital that's required for the idea, if it's in line with your passion, your skills, your level of experience, your knowledge, and so on. And then the third step, of course, is that you need to test the idea. Now, the fourth step, which is very, very key also too, is you need to spend time researching the competition in this idea. Now, it is very important to research the competition, because the competition will actually, that's the person, someone who is already doing the idea, will actually give you a lot more ideas around how to actually set up that idea, and if that idea is actually right for you. Because oftentimes when you realize that you are competing with established brands in a particular industry, the way they have gone about setting up their idea would actually give you some ideas around how to set up the idea a lot better. So oftentimes, while you're selecting an idea, you want to find out who are the competitors in this idea, and then with the kind of competition I have in this particular idea, do I still want to go into this idea? I was listening to a professor in a university talk about entrepreneurship, and he said one of the things that, because he works on a venture capital board, and he said one of the things that they look at when they want to invest in a business is they ask themselves, should this company actually exist? In other words, if somebody's already doing this product, if somebody's already offering this service, why is this particular company still coming into this market? Is there something they can do better about this business or this product that gives them a reason to exist? Because what that questions is the long-term going concern, or the ability of that company to remain, valid or relevant in that sector over a long period of time. So, for instance, I personally, and I differ. I stand to be corrected. I personally won't go into the market to set up an electric car today, because I think Tesla already has that market cornered to some extent, and also has a very strong value chain or production line in that business. Now, other car makers will eventually go into it, but I personally wouldn't. And the reason why I say that is because while you have a very established competition in that, I still don't see what anybody else would add to what is available, except for the fact that maybe there's an established brand like a BM or a Mercedes-Benz that says, okay, we should add an electric car to our line. But to create a new line, a new electric car range from scratch, and say you want to be the top electric car maker, you are going to you'll be starting, unless you have a technology that nobody has right now, there will be no reason for you to start that business. So competition in an industry would often tell you to some extent that, okay, can I actually do this business? It helps you to question your idea a lot more. Am I bringing something to the game that nobody else is bringing? Okay. Am I bringing something to the mix that nobody else is bringing? And I think that's very key, because you need to research your competition very well. Research your competition. Your competition will tell you a lot about the way you are thinking about your idea. So take a lot of time to research your competition for any of those ideas that you have gotten to that last stage. Now, okay, I've tested this idea, it works and all that, but who are my competitors, and what can I do different to what they are doing, And to some extent also, to level of competition in this industry, does it give me an opportunity to actually run this idea profitably? So, those are 4 steps, and that's where I'm going to stop with that. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the comment section, so that we can always answer those questions. Now, moving on to the 7 steps of how to think about your idea. Moving on to the 7 steps of how to think about your idea. So let's start with that, because I think that's the next key thing. Because the idea oftentimes is not that you don't have an idea. I'm sure many of you already have an idea that you're working on, or that you'd like to work on. So the question really oftentimes is how you're thinking about the idea. Are you thinking about it the right way? So I want to quickly ask you 7 questions, and those are 7 questions you need to ask yourself and answer them about that idea. Okay. So number 1 is, how does this idea make money? I mean, let's start from the beginning. Let's pretty much the most important thing. How does this idea make money? You know, what are all the ways in which this idea makes money? Nobody runs an idea for charity, unless, of course, the idea is that you want to own a charity and you want to run an NGO. Fantastic. Then it's a non-profit. Awesome. It's a good thing to do. Go ahead to do it. Okay. One of my dreams is, of course, to run a scholarship board someday. So, I mean, that's something I plan to do someday. But again, talking about an idea here, how does that idea make money? I mean, explore all the ways by which this idea could make money. Will it make money by selling? Will it make money by selling their product? Um, you know, does this idea make money from training people about how to use the product itself? Also, too, is there a way this idea makes money? From along the value chain as well too. So for instance, we were talking to Ubon King last week, last video, and he said, look, he set up a security business, and he realized that to provide security for offshore platforms, he needed to get there by vessels. So he bought a vessel. Then he realized that his vessel crew had to eat, he had to buy groceries for them, he had to buy fuel for them. So he set up a chandling business that supplies food to vessels, to rigs, and so on. And then he set up a bunker business that provides bunker fuel to ships and offshore platforms. Then he realized that when his security crew or guests leave the platform and they have to stay short term somewhere between jobs, they needed a guest house. So he set up a guest house also to house his crew, and also to provide guest house services for the general public. And then he realized that whenever his entourage, whenever these principals, people that he's securing coming from inside the country, there's no one to meet them at the airport. So he set up a reception, a business that, a protocol business that actually picks up people from the airport, ensures that they are secure all from the moment they land in Nigeria up until when they leave. So before you know what's happening, he has set up like 6 businesses. And the reason was he kept thinking about how this business makes money down the value chain. So oftentimes you need to apply either a bottom-up or a top-down strategy that, okay, what are all the ways that this particular idea can make money? Okay. Yes, there's a product you actually want to sell. You can also provide installation services for that product and make money from that. You can also provide training services and make money from that. You can also provide, free consulting that then generates, other consulting opportunities and so on. So for instance, let me give another instance. A friend of mine that I worked with at some point sells generators, and he sells generators. So that's his product. His main product is generators. But I mean, he calls his company something power. I don't want to talk about, Polar Power. He's a friend of mine, so Polar Power. Now, and but he makes money from different things. He sells generators. He makes money from consulting on setting up generators for big companies as well too. So a company wants to set up a generator, a church, like when our church in Lagos wanted to set up their generators, he consulted because the company that came to do the generator installation didn't do it well. And the generators kept shutting down every time they tried to power all 4 generators. They were huge, large, generators, big, each generator was probably bigger than this room, But the company that did it, so he didn't do it well. So they brought him in and he fixed the problem. And now they could run all 4 generators, and he made money from consulting. So, there are several ways around that same idea that you could think about. That are there opportunities to make money from installing this product, or distributing this product, consulting on this product for other people who supply similar products but maybe don't understand how to install or so on. Think about all those opportunities as well. So think about how the idea makes money first and foremost, and all the ways in which the idea could make money. The idea is not to leave any amount of money on the table. If there's a way this idea makes money that I'm not thinking about, that's where researching your competition also helps, because your competition has been established, and over time they've discovered some of these things, and you can then come in and just improve on them. So you can research a competition as well to often learn about how to make more money on that same idea that you want to work on, unless it's a new idea that nobody is doing at the moment. And I gave a free idea. So one of the things I think I will always do is whenever we have these talks, I'll give somebody a lot of ideas. And I think in the course of this particular talk today, I've mentioned several ideas. So there's one idea that I've been thinking about in Nigeria, and I don't understand why nobody has done it yet. Maybe it exists and nobody's working on, and somebody's working on it yet already. So I've been thinking about something like Uber, but for tailoring. So there's always a complaint about Nigerian tailors. Why hasn't someone created a model where different tailors will be on the platform, okay, and different customers will also subscribe to the platform, and there will also be a third category of people who are pickups, who are people who pick up and deliver clothes. So those people could be young professional, young guys who just do it as a side hustle. Their duty will be to pick up materials from customers and deliver it to tailors. And when the tailor is done, they'll pick it from the tailor and deliver it back to the customer. On one side, you have the tailors who will also have the responsibility of when they get the clothes delivered by the delivery guy, they provide the tailoring service. They design the dress. They do all they tailor the dress, whatever according to the customer's requirements, and then they deliver to the pickup guy, and the pickup guy delivers to the customer. Now, the tailors get ranked based on their ability, their tailoring skills, and of course, higher ranking tailors then get more clients and they can grow their business that way. The pickup guys also get ranked from how quickly they pick up and how quickly they deliver based on pickup times. And of course, the customers will also be provided by the tailors. They will be provided a variety of designs so that the designs they will on the app, and they will just pick, okay, if I'm picking from this particular tailor, these are the designs that are available. If I'm picking from this particular tailor, these are the designs that are available, and the customer can pick the design they want. They can also send their measurements by a certain way to the tailors, and then they can deliver and so on. So it's like an app that creates an ecosystem for the tailoring industry, and I don't see why nobody is working on that idea yet. So I mean, that's just one free idea for somebody out there. So that would require a lot from anybody who's going to work on it. You may actually have to have your own set of tailors so that they actually provide tailoring service up to a certain quality. Because take for instance the way Uber started, and then the quality deteriorated because they allowed different kinds of drivers on the screen. You might actually have to watch your quality by ensuring that you actually own the tailors and they actually deliver the clothes according to a certain quality, so that you create value for the platform. That's an idea. Anyway, so there are all sorts of ideas out there. If you really just take the time, I'm sure you can pick an idea that you can work on. Now, the next thing is another question. Second question is, what is the size of the market for this idea? What is the size of the market for this idea? Now, that is two questions in one. First of all, who is the market for this idea? And then what is the size of the market for this idea? So I talked about my sportswear business, and I said that my initial plan was to sell to anybody who could pay 1,000 for a sportswear, and that definition wasn't sharp enough. And then the market helped me to understand that definition, what was wrong with that definition. And I could clearly see that what I needed to do was focus on people who actually would afford to pay above 1,000. And I focused on that market, and I started selling to that market. Now, so you need to click, and that's part of the things that your pilot study will help you understand. Who are the people that need this idea? You can actually, sometimes you already know who it is, sometimes you don't. So you might want to start with, first of all, knowing through your pilot, who are the people I should target with this particular product, okay? And then what is the size of this market, And once I started to realize that this market was a market that I could sell to across Nigeria and even outside Nigeria, it became, I was scared at the prospect that, wow, I started looking for capital to actually expand the business. I mean, that was until I left Nigeria. By the time I was leaving Nigeria, I had already met someone who runs a tailoring factory in Lagos, has a warehouse type building that has well over 100 tailoring machines, has fabrics and all that. And we're about to conclude a deal where he would do most of the production for me because bringing in stuff from China was becoming increasingly difficult. And then producing locally had its own challenges in terms of quality as well, but it would make my my production cycle a lot faster, and also my turnaround time, my costs were also reduced in terms of shipping cost and then dollar exchange rates as well too. So there was a lot of consideration around it, which we already started to work on so that we could expand the business. But I left. Now, one of the things I'm saying that for is once you understand who you are selling to, it becomes easier for you to identify the size of the market. So, for instance, if I know that I want to set up an event planning business, who are the people that I want to provide that event planning service to? Okay, you can't provide event planning to everybody because there are different kinds of people that need event planning services. There are corporates that require event planning for annual general meetings. Do you want to do event planning for all types of business? Do you want to focus on weddings, social functions, or do you want to focus on corporate events? Over time, you quickly develop a niche, and you have to focus on a niche. While I was an MC, one of the things I quickly realized was that I couldn't MC every occasion, every type of occasion. Look, I took MC jobs for weddings where they thought they had hired a comedian, and I can crack some jokes, but most of my jokes are in the course of the wedding event because my principle was that the focus of the day is on the bride, not on the MC. But a lot of MCs out there believe that they should also become real comedians and spend a lot of time during the weddings cracking jokes. I don't believe that. So again, I realized quickly that I had to quickly explain to my clients that, look, the focus of the day is going to be the husband and the wife. I won't have a session where I just sit down cracking jokes and so on. Instead, I'll provide games, I'll provide, fun things to do for the couple or for the groomsmen and the bridesmaids and so on. But I won't stand there and start saying cracking jokes like, oh, there was one guy. Shh, that's not my style. And that quickly helped me to differentiate myself from other, MCs out there and so on. Most of the MCs jobs I did, I was charging 100, 150,000. There are MCs that you will call that will probably charge a lot more than that, but that was how I differentiated myself. So what am I saying? Identify your market and then, define yourself by that market so that people know that, okay, these are the people he's selling to, or these are the people she's selling to. These are the kind of clients she's looking for, because, and then oftentimes it helps to create branding for you as well too. When people know that this is the quality you provide, this is the level, or this is the kind of market. Look, you can sell to any section of the market. If you decide that, you want to sell to the people that want to pay 500 or less, for sportswear, for instance, it's your market. It just means that you know where to go and find these people, and you have to make sure your product is cheap enough so that they can come and buy. One of the things I see about developed markets like this is that while in the same line of business, there are stores. So for instance, if you come to Canada, one of the things I'll quickly tell you is that when you first come, you will likely be shopping a lot in dollar stores, thrift stores, shops like Superstore and so on. Even though you are buying the same groceries, they are a lot cheaper in those sort of stores. But as you get more established and you have more funds, you're working, you're getting more dollars and so on, you'll likely start shopping from different stores, maybe Safeways, maybe City Market. It's the same groceries, but they cost a lot more. The difference is in maybe the quality of the product or the freshness or so on, Sobeys and so on. Now, because those things, they cost a lot more in those stores. And then over time, you even shift to higher, more expensive stores, so, and so on. What I'm saying is that you need to identify your market, and there's absolutely no problem in selling to any segment of the market. So if you want to sell to the mass market and you're looking for products that you can sell for 100 naira, 200 naira, fantastic. If you want to sell to the high end of the market and people who can pay 1,000 plus for a product, then define yourself that way. You see, trying to sell to everybody will put you in trouble. Because here was one of the things I quickly realized. So I was trying to sell sport bras, and I had customers that will pick a sport bra, and of course it's online. So how do you know it's the right size for you? You know, so I had to quickly ask my sales guy every week. We'll line up all those customers in 1 week, and then we'll go and visit them, and then of course they would have to test and be sure that it's the right size, and then they would buy it. And then I've actually had customers who then say, "Oh, I bought this last week, but I'm not sure it's the right size. I'm not feeling comfortable when I try to work out with it." I would have to quickly send a replacement of a larger size, and then they'll say, "Okay, that size is okay," and so on. Now, the implication is that these things were selling for like 500, 600, and the cost of those to and fro alone was getting more than those prices. So if I had to spend 700 naira to go to and fro just to change a bra for someone who bought a bra, then there's no profit for me on that. Because what's my profit on a 500 sale when I probably bought it like 250, 300? So it's costing me a lot more. So that was so you need to define your market well, because it will affect a lot of things in your operations. If you don't define your market well, you end up spending so much on your expenses that you're not making profit from your operations because you have not defined your market segment well. If you want to sell to the low end of the market, you'd have to watch your cost very, very much. Okay, so that your costs don't overrun your profit. Because if you are selling at a very low price, then you can't make a lot of profit if you are racking up costs. At the same time, if you want to sell to the high end of the market, your quality has to be up to a certain level, because the moment your quality is challenged, you lose your relevance in that market, and those people don't want to associate with low quality products. So you have to monitor your market, know your market, and make sure you are producing your product to suit your market. Okay, and understand the size of your market. Now, because the size of the market for that idea will then determine how much you can actually open that business. Now, so for instance, when you know that your market size is actually huge, then you can actually start that business on a larger scale than just a small idea. So for instance, if knowing fully well that the market for that sportswear business on the high end side is actually huge, I can actually invest a lot more capital and push out into it. So someone is asking here that in the case of your sport bra business, did you get your customers online? Yes, I did actually. All the customers were online. All the customers were through my online site. I had a website. I had a Facebook page. I had a Twitter page. I had an Instagram page. We were shooting videos. We were doing events. We actually used to sponsor a fitness camp, boot camp, where people come and train for free, and would hire a trainer to actually train them and pay those trainers. And we actually will sell stuff there as well too, give out prizes and so on. So we created some buzz, but we didn't really do it large scale because I wanted to keep everything undercover for a while until we were fully established and had fully tested out the market very well. So all the customers were online, yeah. So what are we? So that's, let's move on because of time. So question number 3 now. I've talked about 2 questions. How does this idea make money? What is the size of the market? Who is the market? And what is the size of the market for this idea? The third question you need to ask yourself, we sort of answered it, is who is the ideal customer for this idea? So I think we've answered that as well. Let's move on to question number 4 is, can I do this idea alone or do I need a team? Can I do this idea alone or do I need a team? Now, what I think is most ideas are really ideas you can do alone. I mean, on the pilot phase, you can probably do it alone, but most times you need a team for an idea. And the question is, what kind of team do you need? Now, the team you need most times for an idea is, in the early stage, are people that bring skills you don't have. You don't set up a team based on, he's my friend, she's my friend, let's do this together, she's my friend, so let's just go into this idea together. No. You do it based on people that bring skills you don't have. They can be your friends, quite all right. I mean, they can be your friends. There's no problem with that. But they must be bringing skills you don't have to the table. Okay. So for instance, you want to set up so when I set up that sportwear business, okay, let's even talk about something else I did. So I once had an Uber business as well too, and I've mentioned that before. And at the time, we part of what we did was that we had a team. We had like a group of about 4 guys, 4 of us. There were about, I think there were 7 or 8 of us. So we put together 500,000. One guy dropped 1 million, and then we bought 4 cars, and we put them on Uber. And I was the manager. So my responsibility was to I bought the cars, I hired the drivers, I set up the app, I gave everybody on the team, on the WhatsApp group, the password to the app so everybody could see all the funds that were coming in, everybody could see all the accounts and all that. And my responsibility was to ensure that the drivers, drive well, they don't get into trouble, and then we get paid by Uber, and so on. I paid the drivers, and um, you know, and we do the business. Now, while other partners brought capital, I brought the administrative ability, So that was how that idea worked. When I set up the sport business, um, I had a team of about 4 people. I had my stock manager who manages our inventory, and initially when we started, he was pretty much the only person because he was the one that was also doing the deliveries. But over time, I got a delivery guy who was also our sales guy. So he goes to all the gyms, all the churches, puts flyers on the windows of cars. He goes to the gyms and leaves our flyers. I send him to customers to also do deliveries. So he was doing that. And then we had a fourth person who was our PR. Our PR was a lady that ran all our social media pages. She ran Twitter page, Instagram page, Facebook page. I also gave her access to the website so that she could run campaigns and write blogs on the website. So we had that team. So everybody brought their skill. I brought the organization and the management. I had all these guys. I brought the capital as well. And then they had all their functions and everybody knew their responsibilities. And so we're running the business that way. So when you set up a team for an idea, it's not just about, oh, it's my friend, I trust him. It's not just also about capital. It's also about what they bring to the table in terms of skills. And teams make dreams work. You need teams. Teams make dreams work. If you want to achieve your dream, you actually have to have a team. So a team could be somebody that brings programming skills, coding skills, to the table. It could be someone that brings capital to the table. It could be someone that brings relationships to the table. So let me talk about another business I do. In my business planning, and feasibility study business line of work, I had a friend who knows a lot of people on the political side of things, and he knows, he's an engineer by training, but he knows a lot of people in government, in so many banks and so many places. So he was always the one going out sourcing jobs. As soon as I did the first job for him, we formed that partnership, and he sources for jobs, he brings them to me, I do the job, we get paid, he gets his cut. And that's how we've done that business for several years. Now, so there's always that thing about when you have teams. At times there's some businesses you can do alone, and going it alone is often nice because it gives less room for disagreements, for quarrels and issues about money or split and all that. And that's why when you do set up a team, if it's not a team that you hired and set up, if it's a team that works as a partnership, then make sure that the terms of engagement are clearly set out so that everybody knows that this is what happens. If you go out and you bring a deal, you get this commission or you get this cut of the revenue or the profit and so on. Spell it out clearly. Okay, so the question you need to ask here is, can I do this idea alone or do I need a team? And if I'm bringing a team, what skills are they bringing to the table? What skills are they bringing to the table to make sure that this idea works? Have that clearly, use that, think about that when you're thinking about the idea. Okay, that's question number 4. Question number 5 is, very key. It's about technology, and it's saying, where can technology come in and make this idea a lot better? One thing I often find is that if you look at what's going on in Nigeria currently, and it's been going on for a bit of a while, but there's a technology revolution. And I think, was it last year? Sorry, it was 2017, 2016. You notice that a lot of top technology executives came to Nigeria. We had the head of Google come to Nigeria. We had Mark Zuckerberg come to Nigeria. We had all sorts of, interesting top tech guys come to Nigeria. Because Alibaba guy also came as well too, and so on. So everybody realizes that there's a technology revolution going on in Nigeria. Nigerian developers, Nigerian coders, Nigerian programmers are sought after everywhere in the world because they are very good at coding, programming, and so on. Whatever idea you're doing, oftentimes there's a technology element. And technology can reduce the risk of human errors when some things are coded into a system or programmed into a system. So there is a way you can actually use technology to often make your business idea a lot better. But you need to spend the time to actually think about it. And that is where oftentimes, again, researching your competition will help, because you'll see the way in which they have engaged technology to make their idea a lot better. So, for instance, think about this wave of financial products. Okay. Think about this wave of financial products is actually out here, that is there in the market. I'm talking about all these apps for investing. They help you in investing in markets, but at the back end, they are really just technology services. All they do is provide a technology, an access point for you to access brokerage services by established brokers. Okay, while they themselves, all they are really is just a technology service provider. So technology can help you make an idea a lot better, and that's always something you should think about. Just 1 minute, I have to answer the question by JLo. JLo is asking that, as regarding setting up teams, I'm an introvert. How does someone like me get a teams? This has been a really big problem for me. What were the practical steps you took to set up your teams? Okay, awesome. So, and I recognize the problem. Look, setting up a team or hiring people in Nigeria for business is tough. Look, I had issues even with, talk about my drivers on Uber, talk about even my sales guy on the sportswear business. Eventually, turned out to be a funny guy. But there are practical steps to take. Okay, so for instance, and that's why, especially if you're an introvert, it might be a little bit challenging oftentimes, because that means you don't even mix a lot. You don't have a lot of crew or people you talk to. But, I realized I relied on a couple of things. Number one is I relied on youth service. A lot of young coppers are eager to work and eager to actually prove themselves. So if you need someone who can provide a service, especially if something you're willing to pay for, and you've set it up properly in terms of they know where they are to resume, they know what they are meant to do, and you can spell it out very clearly, you can get young coppers that are willing to provide that service. So I relied on that a bit. I'll tell someone that, please, if you know any young copper who is looking for something else to do, please let me know about them. And I would spend my time to interview them, talk to them, research on their Facebook and their LinkedIn, and just get to know more about them before I offer them the job. That's one. I also relied on a church network as well too. So back in Nigeria, of course, I belong to a church, House on the Rock, and I have a lot of friends in church. So I know a lot of young people in church as well too. We'll see each other in church every Sunday. So if you want to run away with my product, you shall come to church. So I know that you're a member of a group in church and you're responsible. Your HOD in that group can vouch for you that you are responsible. That's an opportunity to pick someone. So I relied on those networks. I also relied on introduction by friends as well too. That, okay, for instance, like the lady that ran our PR, Um, very, 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 very wonderful young lady. She's actually just graduated from university, just I think last year or so. Very young girl. She actually runs PR for a couple of webs, also other Instagram handles and Twitter handles and so on. She runs them very well, and I was paying her a certain amount of money, and all she did was she posts contents on all the pages regularly. I just gave her a free hand and she did it. And I met her through somebody. It was someone that introduced her to me that, look, I know this young girl and she runs, our media pages and she could help you as well too. And I spoke to her and she sounded intelligent. We agreed on a pay and that was it. So use your networks, rely on your networks. First of all, ask for introduction from your friends. If you belong to a church or some religious group and you can find someone who is also an established member of that religious group, who someone can vouch for, that's also a good way to go about it as well too. Um, and worst case scenario, if you have to hire someone out of the blues by running adverts on social media, Twitter, Twitter, Instagram, then make sure that they bring a referee. Make sure that they bring someone who can vouch for them. Okay. Now the referee must be someone who will be willing to provide his address, and his ID card on file for them as well too. So you must engage that, because for instance with Uber, my drivers had to take the cars to their houses and sleep and leave the car would be with them, and we never had any car stolen, we never had any car damaged, we never had any issues with any of our drivers to the point where we couldn't find the car or something. No, but the reason was because they knew that I had their referees ID card on file. I have their referees account number on file. I have their referees place of employment on file. A guarantor who has signed a proper legal guarantee agreement, so that if anything happens, I'll just go and pick the guarantor. And all this was done, in the presence of a police officer as well too. So they know so well that if anything happens, this is where they are going. So all that helped me as well. So I think that might just be the way to go about picking people, because in setting up teams, especially if you are the one hiring people, and I'm talking about hiring staff now, that's how to go. But in setting up teams, in terms of partnerships, people you want to partner with for the business, what you need is really oftentimes a very clear legal terms of reference that says that this is how we are relating on this. This is your share of the business, or this is your share of profit or share of revenue from this particular business. And everybody signs and knows that this is what we are doing. Okay. Okay, so that's very key. So and that's the best, because oftentimes you can have, some very casual relationships that if you don't spell out carefully, they may still work fine, but it's always best to be protected. And that's why I prefer going oftentimes the legal route. Uh, okay, so that's that. On that, so I was talking about technology and I was saying, to some extent, your idea might require some technology elements, and that's why you need to move close to technology people. Talk to them on Twitter. Find someone who is willing to take the time to explain to you how to use technology to make your idea better. Because oftentimes, you may not even know, but if you take time to talk to someone who is a developer or a coder or a programmer, they will have some experience and they can tell you that, okay, this is something we can do for you. We can help you set up your website, and on the back end, on the end, on behind the scenes of that website, we'll create a program that tracks where that customer is, clicking from. Is it clicking from Lagos or from Kaduna, from Abuja? And on the other end, we can also see his email, and we can track all his social media activities, and we can see what he's also saying about this product and so on. So all sorts that you can do on the back end with technology that gives you more information about your customers. For instance, when I was running my business, I used Shopify on the back end. Shopify is a website that helps people set up online websites, online stores for selling e-commerce. And on the back end, they provide all sorts of tools for you to track and understand more about your customers. I could track how many of my customers were return customers, had come back to buy products from me several times. I could track which countries they were buying from. I could track how many people have clicked on a product but didn't buy. And then I will be able to then target them with advertisements on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram that, oh, I know you've been to our site. Did you find anything you liked? Do you often get those messages from stores that you visited and they were like, and all of a sudden, maybe you visited ASOS, and all of a sudden, you get a message from you get a mail from ASOS after you just browse their website that, oh, here are some jackets that for under $30. Here are some trousers for under $20. It's because they have tracking tools that check that you clicked on something but you didn't buy. So websites like Shopify, Amazon, eBay, and so on, they have all those on the back end to help their users so that they can track you and they can target you better with ads. And that's why I often recommend them. If e-commerce is something that you're thinking about, go the established route with apps or technology so that you can actually track your customers a lot better and create more sales that way. Okay, moving on to that was the fifth question. Moving on to the sixth question, and I want to try and round this up before 9:30. Is where are you going to get your raw materials and supplies from, and to what extent will exchange rates affect them? Especially when you're creating a business in a country like Nigeria, where the currency is a lot weaker than the dollar, the more of your products that you can source locally, the better for you. But because of quality and because people always prefer things that are made outside the country, oftentimes you have to source a lot of products from outside the country. And that's why exchange rates can be a dampener on your profits. It can affect your profits. So where are you going to source everything you need for this particular idea from? Where are you going to source it from? It's important that you think about it. Because, so for instance, when we were setting up the tomato paste factory, it was in Jos. When we're setting that up, we had to consider a lot of things. Do we get the parts? Do we get the machinery from China or from Italy? Italy also has fantastic machine producing plants for tomato paste. There are particular aspects of the tomato sorting and processing chain that Italy actually makes some of the best machines for. So it had to be a bit of a choice between getting it from China, and because where we don't have very established names, or from Italy where we had established names, but it comes at a higher premium and so on. So where are you going to source your materials from? Are there ones that you can actually fabricate locally? So for instance, there were parts of the value chain that we realized that, okay, if we try to buy this in Italy or China, it will be so expensive that it affects our profitability within the first 2 years. How about we look for local fabricators to fabricate just this small part of the value chain? And because we had local fabricators in Port Harcourt, in Ibadan, in so many places that can actually fabricate some of those machines, we decided to go with local fabrication. So that's why thinking about those things is very critical, because you need to consider all aspects of your operation. Are there things that you can source locally? Are there things that you have no choice but to buy it outside the country? To what extent would exchange rate affect you? And then if exchange rate is a big deal for you in terms of you are going to have materials always coming in from outside the country, then should you ensure that means that in running that idea, part of your revenue must also be in dollars, in foreign currency. You must have a way of either, as soon as you sell, you convert your money to dollars, or you sell to people outside the countries and they pay you in dollars so that you have some dollars coming in as well, so that you can use that to continue to source your raw materials. Because you can't keep converting Naira only when you need it to dollar. The exchange rate will keep changing and you lose a lot more on exchange rate that way. So what you want to do is either you sell part of your products in dollars, or you as soon as you sell, a portion of your revenue is always immediately converted to dollars, so that you are converting at a lower exchange rate compared to when you actually need it. And of course, you also have to set a rate so that if you can get exchange rate at a certain rate, that's when you convert. If exchange rates are a correct certain rate, you don't convert because it's too high. Okay, so for instance, if you run that kind of business now and you need to source things outside the country all the time, you can't be converting at 450 now because exchange rates are too high. So you just have to find a way to get some sales outside the country so that you can actually have some dollars as well too. And let me give for instance, a good idea of that. So there was a time when dollars was pretty scarce, and a lot of our guys in um, auto retailing who sell cars found it difficult to bring cars into the country. And a lot of them had actually even brought cars into the country, but they had all those empty containers and there was nothing to do with those containers. So guess what they started doing? They started exporting cashew nuts. So cashew nuts became very scarce locally in the market because a lot of and I would say Igbo guys were buying up cashew nuts and they were just using all those containers they had used to bring in cars and they were shipping those cashew nuts back out of the country and they were getting dollars for that because cashew nuts is very lucrative around the world. If you can ship it out, you can get dollars, very good dollars for it. So a lot of them were shipping cashew nuts out of the country and using the dollars they were getting from shipping out cashew nuts to then bring in the cars because they couldn't get the dollars locally. So you often have to be creative like that, that it may not necessarily be your own product that you would have to sell to get the dollars. You may have to do something else. You may have to consider a new line of business or a different idea by which you can get dollars that you can use to supplement your purchases. So when I say get dollars for your business, it might not necessarily be through the same business you do. It might be some other idea. It might be something else you have to do to get dollars. But it's important to get dollars if exchange rate is a big deal for your business because you have to source raw materials or products from outside the country. Okay, so that is question number 6, and the final question really is still about you as a person. The final question you need to think about is, what are your weaknesses when it comes to that idea? What are the areas that you still think that you are going to struggle with? You need to be very, very upfront about this. You need to be very, very upfront because see, the success of that business to a large extent will depend on you, the founder and the owner of the idea. And if you don't face the fact that you have weaknesses in a certain area, that business will struggle, that idea will struggle. So what are your weaknesses? That's why in creating your teams, I said you need to create a team that brings a certain skill to the table, proven skills, not just mouth skills. Like for instance, when I had a salesperson and it was just mouth, he had told me that he could sell. And I'm not a kind of person that just tells you, oh yeah, come and sell for me. And I sat down with him and I said, look, between me and my stock manager, we have compiled a list of 100 gyms in Lagos. 100 gyms in Lagos. I'm going to give you 10. You're going to have like 5 to 10 gyms every week that you have to visit. Drop our flyers there. Just hang around and talk to some of their customers, some of their clients about our business, and give them our flyers. Put copies of our flyers on their reception table as well, so that when people come in to use the gym, they see it. And then you'd also go to churches. Now, we haven't compiled a list of churches, but pretty much on any street you go to in Lagos, I'm sure you can find a church or a mosque or somewhere people will park their cars in large numbers, and you can hang flyers on the cars as well too. So every week, you will go to 5 to 10 gyms, and you go to churches as well too. And then we'll meet on Friday and we'll have a sales meeting, and you'll tell me what you have done for the week. And every week, I will cover your transportation. I'll give you this much for transportation, and we'll discuss. And then of course, I'll also give you money for deliveries if there are deliveries during the week. So we had that sort of plan, and I said, this is what you do. So when I think he saw that how serious things were, we had the first week, we had the meeting. I think he went to like 3 gyms. He distributed all the flyers in one church, and that was it. Then they had the second meeting, and we had the third meeting. I realized that this guy wasn't a very serious guy. I just fired him. So you need to know your weaknesses. Now, sales is actually not one of my weaknesses. I'm very good with sales. I've sold things pretty much all my life, and I'm constantly selling myself. But when I brought him on board, it was very clear to me that this is not a salesperson. So know your own weaknesses so that when you're hiring people, you can identify that, oh, this person would work, this person would not work. Okay. I've met some really solid salespeople as well too, who are very good at selling. If you are someone that selling is not your strong suit, when you are building your team, then a salesperson is a very critical member of your team. You need to have salespeople. And I'm not talking salespeople that are all mouths that, oh, I can sell, I can sell. No, like people who have proven expertise in selling. I've sold things on the streets of Lagos. I've sold things at campgrounds, crusade grounds, and so on. I've sold things, in different ways. So sales is not one of my own, but one of the things that I'm not very good at is accounting for things, accounting for final details of things. So I had to get someone who can set up the accounting very well, and that's why I even use Shopify on the back end, because Shopify has a very strong accounting suite that would account for things. As long as you are constantly recording them, they will give you very good accounts. Okay, so you need to have all that consideration about your weaknesses. Are you good in, so some of the areas that I think you should check when it comes to your weaknesses is: number one, are you good in selling? Sales, accounting, okay, technology, you know, branding, very, very keen, and then I think a final area, so sales, accounting, technology, branding, and then I think a third area would be, or a fifth area with sales, accounting, technology, branding. And if I think about it, I'll probably remember. But those are four key areas that I think you need to assess yourself on: sales, accounting, technology, and then branding. So while you may be good in one of them or two of them, you need to often bring out, once you find there's an area where you are weak, you need to bring people who can help you on the other side. I was good in sales. But I wasn't very good on the accounting side or the technology side. I could handle some things on the technology side. I built the website myself. I set up all the entire processes myself, for selling the business. But I still needed some help on some technology. So I would often talk to my friends who are in technology. That, oh, what do you think about this? And then on the branding side, I didn't know anything about branding, or how to set up my own PR systems, manage my websites, and so on. So you need to look for help on that. Now, JLo is saying that, okay, LOL, two weaknesses: following through and multiple different ideas that just pops up in my head. Look, JLo, you are everything like me as well too. Within the space of 2-3 minutes, I probably have like 3 ideas in my head oftentimes. And the kind of person I am, it's part of the reason why I'm doing this series as well too, is that I think about a lot of things, and I just want to do them right away. So oftentimes I do them on a very small scale rather than the large scale they could be. Okay, I've thought about a couple of businesses that I now see them running as large businesses that I'm like, oh, I could have set that up, I could have set that up, I could have set that up, and so on. But because I'm always running over different ideas. So if you're that kind of person that a lot of ideas are always pop into your head, you can just write them down and then share them with other people. But instead, don't be the one that wants to quickly do every idea. Pick the one that you can work with and do that one and expand it. And for instance, like right now, that's what I'm trying to do. That once I'm to the extent where my job would allow, I would love to do something that would become a mega company, someday, that employs hundreds or thousands of people and so on. And that's something I would like to work on right now. So branding, so those are four areas to assess yourself on regarding your strengths and your weaknesses: your sales, your accounting, your technology, and your branding. And those are areas where I think you may need to bring people into your business and so on. So those are the 7 questions that I think when you're analyzing your idea, you should think about. There are probably several other things, but for me, these 7 questions are very key so that it helps you to set up the business very well. Now, I'll just run through the 4 things that I gave you and the 7 questions I gave you as well too, so that we can just wrap this up. So I started this class this morning by talking about 4 steps to selecting the right business idea for you. And I said, number 1 is write down as many ideas as you can. Write down your ideas and write them down in all their entirety, all aspects considered. Screen the idea based on your personality, your experience, your passion, your skills, your knowledge of the idea, the type of idea it is, the capital that is required, and so on. I said test the idea on a mock level or on a pilot level. And then also said you can research your competition to see if there's room for you in that industry, to see if there's a way you can improve that idea, to see if there's a way you can run that idea a lot better. So those are 4 steps in selecting the right idea for yourself. And then in terms of when you have an idea and you want to analyze the idea, 7 questions you should ask. Number 1 is, how does this idea make money? In all ways, all the ways in which this idea makes money. Number 2 is, who is the ideal customer for this idea, and what is the size of the market for this idea? Okay, that's question 2 and 3. Who is the ideal market for this idea, and what is the size of the market for this idea? Number 4 is, can I go on this idea alone, or do I need a team? And what kind of team do I need for this idea? Which is closely related to another question, which is, what are my weaknesses regarding this idea? And I gave you 4 areas to assess: sales, accounting, technology, and branding. And then question number 6 is, where can technology come in and make this idea a lot better? And then question number 7 is, how do I source the raw materials and the suppliers I need for my product? And will exchange rate affect? And if there's an exchange rate impact, how do I go about solving that exchange rate issue? So those are some of the ways you can assess the idea. Now, just before we go, the last thing I should say is that the reason why we're doing this is because I feel that as a young professional, you have your job or your main employment, whatever it is, your business or your main employment or your job. You should also have a side business, and you should have investments. Those are at least 3 sources of income for you, because you will get some income from your investments, you get some income from your side hustle or your side business, and you get some income from your main job and your main business, because all these are important in building a strong financial future for yourself and creating, proper wealth. Now, you'd also have your passions and your hobbies, which over time you could turn into revenue, you could generate some money from, and so on. And those are all income sources. And that's why we're doing this. So in doing that, in setting up the business or the side hustle that you want to set up, that's what we're talking about: how to generate an idea or how to analyze an idea. And these are some of the steps that I feel will be very helpful. I want to round up the class now, but if there are any questions, now would be a good time to ask before we call it a day. I want to thank everyone who has joined the class. This video should be available on the website, on the YouTube page for you to also watch. Download it. Feel free to share with your friends. And most importantly, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. And then let's keep talking. And if you have more questions, of course, once the video is on the YouTube page, happy to answer questions in the comment section. I always see the comments, and I'm always responding there as well too. Okay. I see that there are no more questions. My coffee is cold already. Okay, someone is saying, what do you think about investing in startups? What do you think about investing in startups? You know what? I think it's a good idea if you have a lot of capital. If you have a lot of capital, I think it's a good idea. The issue oftentimes is that the risk factor is pretty high, because unless you need to do a lot of search, and that's why venture capital firms that invest in startup, they put you through a serious process before you see a dime of their money, because there's so much risk about do you know the business owner, the industry, or the country in which that startup is operating, and so on, and you're not so sure how you will get your money out. So you need to have very clear terms regarding I'm putting in this much money in a business. This is how my money will come back to me. I think startups are good, and I personally plan to invest in a few over time. Like, for instance, my younger brother is working on one, and I've helped them to work on their business plan. I've helped them to work on all sorts. They finally got adopted into Y Combinator recently, one of the venture capital firms, Y Combinator recently. So they are currently going through a process that will give them some venture capital. Once they are well set up, I'll also put some funds in the business as well. So I believe in startups. I think startups are key. especially on the technology side. But for me, your unique selling proposition is the most important thing. What are you offering that is better than what is out there? If you don't offer something that is better than out there, I likely won't even look at the business. So I think you should adopt that similar strategy. Only invest in startups that offer something real that is already established in sense of the fact that that business is in demand, but they offer something better. Okay. And also to have very clear legal documentations around your investment. So if there's no way to set up a proper legal documentation about your investment, then I wouldn't recommend it. What is the name of the startup you're talking about? Oh, sorry, it's still under wraps for now. once once they are ready to go public, I'll definitely bring that up, because I'm definitely going to be one of their promoters. So, but the moment they're going through Y Combinator, which is a venture capital class where they will teach them, they'll train them, and then they will put some money in the business as well too. That's when they will be open to any sort of public funding as well too. So, at the moment, I think they're still under wraps. Okay. Please feel free to continue to comment in the video. I usually go for a bike ride every morning, so I'm going for my bike ride, and it's been a pleasure talking to you guys, sharing this idea and answering your questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to write them in the comments, and I'll keep answering them when I'm back. Thank you very much, and have a good weekend.